She knocked at midnight. Her thirst wasn't just for blood, asterisk. The midnight visitor. Old grandfather clock in David's hallway chimed 12 times, its deep resonance echoing through the empty house. He sat in his favorite leather chair, nursing a glass of whiskey and staring at the rain streaking down his windows. The storm had been raging for hours, but something about tonight felt different. The air seemed charged with an energy that made his skin tingle. David had moved to this secluded house on Maple Street after his divorce, seeking solitude and peace. The neighbors were few and far between, which suited him perfectly. He worked as a freelance architect, designing homes for people who still believed in happy endings. The irony wasn't lost on him. A soft knock at the door made him freeze. Who would be out in this weather at midnight? He wasn't expecting anyone, and delivery drivers certainly didn't work this late. The knock came again, more insistent this time. David set down his glass and walked to the front door, his bare feet silent on the hardwood floor. Through the peephole, he saw her. A woman stood on his porch, completely dry despite the torrential rain. Her long black hair cascaded over her, shoulders like liquid silk, and her pale skin seemed to glow in the dim porch light. She wore a simple black dress that clung to her curves, and her eyes were the most striking shade of emerald he'd ever seen. "Can I help you?" David called through the door, his hand hovering over the deadbolt. "Please," she said, her voice carrying a slight accent he couldn't place. "I need shelter from the storm." Something in her tone made him open the door without hesitation. She stepped inside, bringing with her the scent of jasmine and something else he couldn't identify. Up close, she was even more beautiful, with sharp cheekbones and full lips that seemed to invite secrets. "I'm Natasha," she said, extending a pale hand. "Thank you for letting me in." David shook her hand, surprised by how cold her skin was. "David, you're freezing. Let me get you something warm to drink." As he led her to the kitchen, he noticed she moved with an almost ethereal grace, as if her feet barely touched the floor. She sat at his small dining table while he prepared tea, her green eyes following his every movement. "You live alone," she observed. It wasn't a question. "How did you know that?" David asked, turning to face her. "The house feels lonely," she said simply. "Like you." Her words hit him harder than they should have. "I'm not lonely," he lied. "I prefer solitude." Natasha smiled, and for a moment he thought he saw something flash in her eyes. Something predatory. "We're alike then. I've been alone for a very long time." "What were you doing out in the storm?" David asked, setting a steaming mug before her. She wrapped her fingers around the cup, but didn't drink. "I was looking for something. Someone, actually." "Did you find them?" "I think I did." Her gaze locked with his, and David felt something shift in the air between them. It was as if the world had suddenly become more vivid, more alive. They talked through the night, sharing stories and secrets. Natasha spoke of traveling from far away, of searching for something she'd lost long ago. David found himself opening up about his failed marriage, his dreams of building something beautiful and lasting. She listened with an intensity that made him feel like he was the only person in the world. As dawn approached, Natasha stood to leave. "Thank you for the shelter," she said. "And for the conversation? Will I see you again?" David asked, surprising himself with the hope in his voice. "Perhaps," she replied, her smile mysterious, "if you truly want to." She walked to the door, pausing at the threshold. "David, be careful what you wish for. Some thirsts, once awakened, can never be quenched." Before he could ask what she meant, she was gone, vanishing into the morning mist, like she'd never been there at all. Only the lingering scent of jasmine and the memory of her emerald eyes proved she'd been real. The awakening hunger 3 days passed, and David couldn't stop thinking about Natasha. He found himself distracted at work, making mistakes on blueprints, and losing track of conversations with clients. His mind kept drifting to her pale skin, her hypnotic voice, and the way she'd looked at him, as if she could see straight through to his soul. He'd started taking long walks at night, hoping to catch a glimpse of her. The rational part of his mind told him he was being foolish, that she was probably just a passing stranger who'd moved on to the next town. But something deeper, more primal, insisted she was still near. On the fourth night, she appeared again. David was in his study, working late on a project, when he felt that familiar tingle in the air. He looked up to find her standing by his window, having somehow entered without making a sound. Tonight, she wore a deep red dress that made her skin look like porcelain. "You've been looking for me," she said, moving closer to his desk. "How did you get in?" David asked, though he wasn't alarmed. Her presence felt natural, as if she belonged there. "Does it matter?" she replied, perching on the edge of his desk. "You wanted to see me again." "I did," he admitted. "I can't stop thinking about you." Natasha reached out and traced a finger along his jawline. Her touch was still cold, but it sent fire racing through his veins. "That's because you've awakened something in me, David. Something that's been sleeping for centuries." "Centuries?" He tried to laugh it off, but her expression remained serious. "I'm not like other women," she said quietly. "I'm not entirely human." David studied her face, looking for signs of jest or madness. He found neither. "What are you then?" "I'm what your stories might call a vampire," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "But not the kind that craves blood." His rational mind screamed that this was impossible, but his heart believed every word. "What do you crave?" "Connection," she said, her eyes growing distant. "Intimacy. The warmth of another soul touching mine. I feed on emotional energy, on the bonds between people. And you, David, you burn brighter than anyone I've ever encountered. Is that why you came to me?" He asked, though part of him already knew the answer. "Initially, yes," she admitted. But something unexpected happened. Instead of just feeding, I found myself caring. It's been so long since I felt anything real. She stood and walked to the window, her reflection ghostly in the glass. "My kind are born predators. We take what we need and move on. But with you, I want to give something back." David rose and joined her at the window. "What could you possibly give me?" "Purpose," she said, turning to face him. "Passion. A reason to feel alive again. But I have to warn you, once we truly connect, once I share my essence with you, there's no going back. You'll be changed." "Changed how?" "You'll be able to sense things others can't. Feel emotions more deeply. Live longer. But you'll also be bound to me as I'll be bound to you." David considered her words. His life had felt empty for so long, a series of going through the motions without any real meaning. The idea of being truly alive again, of sharing something profound with this extraordinary woman, was intoxicating. "What if I say yes?" he asked. "Then tomorrow night, when the moon is full, I'll show you what it means to truly live." She moved closer, and this time when she touched his face, her skin felt warm. "But tonight, I want you to be sure. Think about what you're willing to sacrifice for love." "Love?" The word escaped him before he could stop it. "What else would you call this feeling between us?" she asked, her emerald eyes searching his. David realized she was right. What he felt for her went beyond attraction or fascination. It was deeper, more fundamental. It was love, strange and impossible as it seemed. "I don't need to think," he said, pulling her into his arms. "I've been waiting my whole life for someone like you." Their kiss was electric, sending shockwaves through both of them. When they parted, David could swear he saw starlight dancing in her eyes. "Tomorrow night," she whispered against his lips. Meet me in the forest behind your house. Come alone, and come ready to embrace your destiny. The forest ritual the next evening, David waited impatiently for darkness to fall. He'd spent the day in a state of nervous anticipation, unable to focus on anything except the promise of what was to come. Part of him wondered if he'd lost his mind, but a larger part had never felt more certain of anything in his life. As the full moon rose above the tree line, David made his way into the forest behind his house. The path was illuminated by silver moonlight, and the air hummed with an otherworldly energy. He followed a trail he'd never noticed before, one that seemed to appear beneath his feet as he walked. He found Natasha in a clearing he was certain hadn't existed the day before. She stood in the center of a circle of ancient oak trees, their branches forming a natural cathedral overhead. She'd changed into a flowing white gown that seemed to be made of moonbeams themselves. "You came," she said, her voice carrying on. "The night breeze. Did you doubt I would?" David asked, stepping into the circle. "I hoped," she replied, moving toward him. "But hope and certainty are different things." As she drew closer, David noticed she looked different. Her skin seemed to glow from within, and her eyes held depths he hadn't seen before. She was beautiful, but also something more than beautiful. She was otherworldly. "Are you ready?" she asked, taking his hands in hers. "What exactly am I getting ready for?" David asked, though his voice held no fear. "To become part of something greater," she said. "To join your life force with mine. But first, you need to understand what I truly am." Natasha stepped back and closed her eyes. The air around her began to shimmer, and slowly her human facade began to fade. Her skin took on an ethereal luminescence, and delicate silver markings appeared along her arms and neck. Her hair became a cascade of starlight, and when she opened her eyes, they held the depth of the universe itself. "I am Valdris," she said, her voice now carrying harmonics that resonated in David's bones. "I am one of the ethereal, beings who exist between dimensions. We are drawn to strong emotions, to souls that burn with passion and purpose." David stared at her transformed state, feeling no fear, only wonder. "You're magnificent," he whispered. "And you," she said, reaching out to touch his chest, "are rare among humans. Your capacity for love, for connection, is extraordinary. That's why I can't simply feed from you and leave. I want to share my existence with you." "What does that mean?" "It means becoming something new together," she explained. "Neither fully human nor fully ethereal, but something in between. You'll gain abilities you've never imagined, but you'll also take on responsibilities." "What kind of responsibilities?" "To protect the balance between worlds," she said. "To help others who are lost, as I was lost before I found you. To be guardians of love itself." David felt the weight of her words, but also the rightness of them. "And if I refuse?" "Then I'll leave, and you'll forget this ever happened," she said softly. "You'll return to your quiet life, and I'll continue my eternal wandering." "But you don't want that," he said, reading the sadness in her cosmic eyes. "No," she admitted, "I don't. For the first time in centuries, I've found someone who makes me want to stay." David stepped closer, reaching out to touch her luminescent skin. It felt warm now, alive with energy that seemed to pulse in rhythm with his heartbeat. "I love you," he said simply. "Whatever you are, whatever this makes me, I love you." Valdris smiled, and the clearing filled with gentle light. "Then let us begin." She placed her hands on either side of his face, and suddenly David could see everything. Her memories flowed into him. Thousands of years of existence, countless worlds, the loneliness of eternal wandering, but also beauty beyond imagination, love stories that spanned galaxies, and the profound connection that bound all living things together. "Now you see," she whispered. "Will you join me?" "Yes," David said without hesitation. "Yes, I will." The transformation began slowly, a warm tingling that spread from where she touched him throughout his entire body. David felt his consciousness expanding, his awareness growing to encompass things he'd never imagined. He could sense the life force of every creature in the forest, feel the pulse of the earth beneath his feet, and see the threads of connection that linked all things together. But most clearly, he could feel Valdris's love for him, as pure and infinite as starlight. The new beginning, when the transformation was complete, David found himself changed in ways he'd never imagined possible. His vision was sharper, his hearing more acute, and he could sense the emotional energy of every living thing around him. But more importantly, he could feel Valdris's presence in his mind, a constant warm glow that made him feel complete for the first time in his life. "How do you feel?" she asked, though he could sense she already knew the answer through there. "Bond. Alive," he said, marveling at how his voice carried new harmonics. "More alive than I've ever been." They stood together in the clearing, hands intertwined, as the moon reached its zenith overhead. David could see the silver markings that now adorned his own skin, mirror images of the ones on Valdris's arms. They pulsed with a gentle light that seemed to beat in time with their shared heartbeat. "What happens now?" David asked. "Now we learn to live as one," Valdris replied. "But first, we need to go back to your world. You have a life there, people who care about you. We can't simply disappear." David nodded, thinking of his work, his few close friends, the life he'd built. "Will they notice the change?" "They'll notice you're happier," she said with a smile. "More confident, more connected to the world around you. But they won't see what we truly are unless we choose to reveal it." They made their way back through the forest, which now seemed alive with whispers and songs David could almost understand. The trees themselves seemed to bend slightly as they passed, acknowledging their transformation. Back at his house, David marveled at how different everything looked. He could see the energy flowing through the walls, the history embedded in every object, the love and care that had gone into building this home. It was still his sanctuary, but now it felt like something more. "This will be our home now," Valdris said, reading his thoughts. "If you'll have me." "Always," David replied, pulling her close. "But I need to ask you something." "Why me? Out of all the humans you could have chosen, why did you pick me?" Valdris was quiet for a moment, her green eyes thoughtful. "Do you remember what you told me about your work? About designing homes for people who still believe in happy endings?" David nodded. "You've spent your life creating spaces for love to flourish," she continued. "Even after your own heart was broken, you never stopped believing in the power of connection. That kind of faith, that determination to keep building bridges between people, is incredibly rare." She led him to the couch where they sat together, her head resting on his shoulder. "But there's more to it than that. When I first sensed your energy, I was drawn by your loneliness. I thought you'd be easy to feed from and forget. But when I met you, I realized your loneliness wasn't emptiness. It was yearning. You weren't empty. You were waiting." "Waiting for you," David said softly. "Waiting for love," she corrected. "I just happened to be the one who found you first." They talked through the night, planning their future together. Valdris would help David with his work, using her enhanced senses to create spaces that would truly nurture the people who lived in them. They would travel together, seeking out others who needed their help, using their combined abilities to heal broken hearts and mend fractured relationships. "Will you miss your old life?" Valdris asked as dawn approached. David considered the question seriously. His old life had been comfortable but hollow, successful but unfulfilling. He'd been going through the motions, building a career, but not a life. "No," he said finally, "I won't miss it. This is what I was meant for. You are what I was meant for. And you are what I was meant for, she replied, her voice soft with emotion. I've wandered for so long, David, centuries of searching for something I couldn't even name. But now I know what it was. What? Home, she said simply. You're my home. As the sun rose over the horizon, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink, David realized that his life was truly beginning. Everything that had come before had been preparation for this moment, for this love, for this incredible woman who had knocked on his door at midnight and changed everything. He thought back to that first night when she'd warned him to be careful what he wished for. She'd been right about one thing. Some thirsts, once awakened, could never be quenched. But she'd been wrong about another. His thirst for love, for connection, for purpose, had been quenched completely. He was full, satisfied, complete dot, and he was homed out forever. Bound 6 months had passed since that transformative night in the forest, and David's life had become something he'd never dared to imagine. He and Valdres had settled into a rhythm that felt as natural as breathing. During the day, he continued his architectural work, but now his designs carried an otherworldly beauty that left clients speechless. The homes he created seemed to pulse with life, as if they were living entities designed to nurture love and happiness. Valdres had proven to be an invaluable partner in every sense. Her ability to sense the emotional needs of their clients meant that every space David designed was perfectly tailored to bring out the best in the people who would live there. Young couples found their relationships deepening, families grew closer, and even the most cynical individuals found themselves believing in love again. You're becoming famous, Valdres teased one evening as they reviewed the latest stack of requests for David's services. The mysterious architect who builds homes that heal hearts. We're becoming famous, David corrected, pulling her into his arms. I couldn't do any of this without you. Their bond had grown stronger with each passing day. They could communicate, without words, share thoughts and feelings as easily as sharing breath. David had discovered that his transformation had given him abilities he was still learning to master. He could sense the structural integrity of buildings just by touching them, see the flow of energy through spaces, and most remarkably, help people heal from emotional wounds simply by being present with them. I have something to tell you, Valdres said, her tone suddenly serious. David felt a flutter of concern through their bond. What is it? Others of my kind have taken notice of what we're doing, she said. They're curious about our experiment. Experiment? A human and ethereal joining so completely, she explained. It's never been done before. Most of my people believe it's impossible. David studied her face, reading the worry in her eyes. Are they angry? Some are, she admitted. They think I violated the natural order. But others are intrigued. They want to see if what we have is real, if it can last. And what do you think? Valdres smiled, her expression softening. I think they're about to get their answer. Before David could ask what she meant, the air in their living room shimmered, and 3 figures materialized. Like Valdres, they appeared human at first glance, but David's enhanced senses immediately recognized them as ethereal beings. There, Leader, a tall woman with silver hair and eyes like liquid mercury, stepped forward. Sister, she said, her voice carrying the same otherworldly harmonics as Valdres's. We meet again. Celestin, Valdres replied, moving protectively in front of David. I should have known you'd come. The council is concerned, Celestin said, her gaze shifting to David. You've broken our most sacred law by sharing your essence with a human. The question is, what shall we do about it? David felt his protective instincts surge, but Valdres's calm presence in his mind steadied him. With respect, he said, stepping forward, Valdres and I haven't harmed anyone. If anything, we've helped people find love and happiness. Celestin's eyebrows rose slightly. The human speaks with wisdom. Interesting. She walked around them in a slow circle, her mercury eyes studying every detail. "Show me your bond," she commanded. David looked to Valdris, who nodded. Together, they allowed their true forms to shine through. The silver markings on their skin blazed with light, and the energy that flowed between them became visible, a golden cord that connected their hearts. The three ethereal beings gasped. One of them, a young man with dark hair, stepped forward. "The bond is perfect," he breathed. "Complete. I've never seen anything like it." "Nor have I," Celestin admitted, her stern expression softening. "In all my centuries, I've never witnessed such a pure connection." "Does this mean we have your blessing?" Valdris asked. Celestin was quiet for a long moment, her silver eyes distant. "It means," she said finally, "that you've accomplished something remarkable. You've proven that love truly can transcend the boundaries between worlds." She turned to address David directly. "You've changed her, you know. Valdris was always the most compassionate of us, but she was also the most isolated. She felt too deeply, loved too freely. We thought it was a weakness." "It was her greatest strength," David said firmly. "Her capacity for love is what saved me." "And your capacity for love is what saved her," Celestin replied. "You've both become more than you were alone." The council leader approached them, her expression now warm. "The council has decided. Your bond will be recognized and protected. But more than that, you've opened a new path for our people. Others may choose to follow in your footsteps." "What does that mean?" David asked. "It means," said the young ethereal, "that you've just started a revolution. A revolution of love." After the council members departed, David and Valdris sat together on their porch, watching the stars emerge in the darkening sky. The weight of what they'd been told was slowly sinking in. "Do you think others will really follow our example?" David asked. "I hope so," Valdris replied. "Love shouldn't be confined to one species or one dimension. It should be free to flourish wherever it's found." David pulled her closer, marveling at how perfectly she fit against his side. "I love you," he said simply. "And I love you," she replied, "forever and always." As they sat together under the starlight, David reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment. It had started with a knock at midnight, a stranger seeking shelter from a storm. But it had become something infinitely more precious, a love that transcended worlds, a bond that would last for eternity. He thought of Valdris's words from that first night. Some thirsts, once awakened, could never be quenched. She'd been right, but not in the way either of them had expected. Their thirst for love, for connection, for meaning, had been completely satisfied. But in its place had grown something new, a thirst to share that love with others, to help heal a broken world one heart at a time. The future stretched before them, full of infinite possibilities. They would continue their work, building homes that nurtured love and healing hearts that had been broken. They would guide others of both their species toward their own perfect unions. And they would love each other with the intensity of 1,000 suns, proving that some bonds are strong enough to reshape the very fabric of reality. David kissed the top of Valdris's head, breathing in the scent of jasmine and starlight that always surrounded her. He'd found his purpose, his partner, and his home. And it had all started with a woman who knocked at midnight, whose thirst wasn't just for blood, but for something far more precious: love.